time. We rush like fourth down.
I be taking wins, we don't mess with laws. I be taking wins, we don't mess with laws. I be taking wins, we don't mess with laws. I be taking wins, we don't mess with laws. We been on that paper chasing all that fashion. We been on that paper chasing what you ration.
Been in the grind now, we ready for prime time, ready for shine now, be ready to get smile. On the rise, all eyes up on us now. Blast off spaceships till the touchdown.
Energy level on high, put that trouble on fire. Double it down, I'ma spit it around. Click, clack, boom, we the best in town. Energy level on high, put that trouble on fire. Double it down, I'ma spit it around. Click, clack, boom, we the best in town. I started off the lowest point in life, though. I started off the lowest point in life, though. I started off the lowest point in life, though. I started off the lowest point in life, though. I started off the lowest point in life, though.
Yo, yo, yo. What's good, people? What's good? Shout out to Tree because she called in to say she's checking in tomorrow. That's dedication right there. When you call before the show and you say, you know what? You know I'm a loyal watcher, listener, but I'm not going to be able to watch right now. I'm going to be checking in tomorrow. So Tree, hopefully you're cleaning the house right now. You're finding your mojo. You're doing what you need to do. And you're watching it. And I'm talking just to you. Because that's what we do. That's what we do at the ProQuo Show. What can I tell you? Well, I can tell you this. This is who I am. I'm a raptivist. I'm an educator. I'm a math and science guy who likes to think about stuff. It's a good way to define me. So I've been thinking about a lot of stuff. And I'm going to get into it a little bit if I can with you. Let me put this little scrolling text on the bottom. And you tell me what you think. Let's go. I got the caps lock on. All right. We got the I didn't scroll it. I should have scrolled it. I should have put it on scroll, but I'm not gonna. You know what? I'm gonna go back with this one. Yeah, happy summer, everybody. Hope your summer's going swell. It is July 22nd, 2022. We right in the core of summer. I don't know where you're at. If you're probably in Massachusetts or you out here in the DMV or whatever, we have about the same weather. It's pretty much like mid-90s all week. We right in the middle of thick of things. It is pool weather. It is time to think about summer music. It is time to think about what you're doing. And how are you happy or not with the progress that you've made with your New Year's resolutions, which, you know, you think back to it, it feels like it was just New Year's. Here we are in the middle of summer, halfway through the year. And how are those gym memberships going? Like, are you utilizing them? Are they sitting on the shelf? Are you waiting for the next New Year to come around? Do you have the summer body that you were hoping for, that you told yourself you were going to have? And I'm interested. I'm interested in that. Because, you know, we make a lot of resolutions and we don't always get there. And we do this as musicians, too. You know, one of the big is, yo, this is going to be the year, or this is going to be our year, or something to that effect. You know whose year it's been? Right there. It's been Star Wars year. I got the Mandalorian shirt on. Man, Disney's just making that paper off Star Wars. So, I was a little distracted right there by my Star Wars light, so I had to shout them out. In fact, they're the official unofficial sponsor, Star Wars and Disney. You know how I like to get down with them. But yeah, back to the where you're at in terms of goals. And so we, as advertised, wanted to talk just really to ourselves tonight. We originally had a guest for tonight, and we ended up changing the dates. Same thing with next week. We ended up changing dates. And by the way, Speaking of upcoming guests, a show that I do want to shout out, August 12th. You you definitely want to be checking us out. And August 12th, the reason why is because we are going to have the Angel in here. Angel's been here once before. If you guys are faithful listeners, you may have seen her in here before. But after we have with her coming up this time for a second time is Slim Kid from the Far Side. Slim Kid 3 is going to be coming up. So they have an amazing project together that's dropping. It's actually dropping, I believe, the 29th of July. So look for that. I'll be posting that on my show, on my page shortly to make sure everybody's checking for that out. AKA 60 channels. So yeah, you definitely want to check that out. Her story is amazing. She's far too humble. And usually won't give you the full details on everything, but it's just I'm going to put her on the spot and make her speak about some of the stuff that she's done. And the track is called How It Goes Down, the Angel remix, and it's just crazy. It's just talk about a vibe and talk about something that is ready, custom made to be placed all over the industry in terms of where you can place that song. Oh my goodness. So that's going to lead into some of what we're talking about today, because we are, as advertised, talking about some of the things that you can do to enhance yourself for basic business. So in terms of what you can do to kind of get yourself out there heard and spotlighted. So we're going to record this and snip it up for posterity. And I'm excited to share with a lot of people, especially tomorrow. We got a lot of weekend warriors, and I can't wait to get it out to our weekend crew. And shout out, last week, we hit 495 viewers over the weekend alone, which is crazy. Because live, it's a tough time. It's Friday night, 9 o'clock. It's probably the premier time for people not to be in the house, especially people with COVID blues and stuff like that, trying to get out and do their thing. And we stay really strong over the weekend. So shout out to everybody who's checking us out on the weekends. And we hope to keep building those numbers as much as possible. But it's tricky, and this is going to lead into what we're saying. It's really tricky to stay consistent with stuff in life, just like the gym or doing a live stream show. There's no rule that you have to do them forever or anything, especially if you're running it, not reporting to someone. You run your own business, you show up when you want to. But if you want to stay consistent in an industry like entertainment, in terms of your artistry, it is really, really difficult because life gets in the way. And so the question really comes up, much like what I was leading into about the gym and your New Year's resolution. What are you going to do to make sure you actually are able to get after it in a way that fits your goals? So, for instance, let's lay it out. So, give you an example. This winter, coming into it, you heard me complaining, if you've been watching the show, talking about like winter weight and all that kind of stuff with COVID and all that. I was like, you know what? By the 4th of July, I would really like to be 200 pounds. Because I jumped up to like 225, and I can handle 225 at just about 6'4" with wide shoulders, and you can't really tell just how sloppy that can be on me. I can tell, you can see it in the face and so forth. But now I'm 198, right? And it's after 4th of July, and I was just about on time, maybe a few days behind. And we do what we have to do. But the key is, and the reason I bring this up is, if you think about it, 25 pounds in like 6-7 months is not a huge thing. I mean, it sounds great. If a lot of people haven't seen us, right, for 6 months or so. Like, if you've seen someone weekly or every day, you won't even notice 25 pounds over 6 months. But for someone who hasn't seen you in a while, they're like, oh, yo, now you look like the you I remember, right? We're all trying to get to where we want to be. A lot of people out there with the same story with COVID, like, yo, I want to get to where I want to be. And now you try to kick it into high gear, right? Like, you say, okay, I accomplished one goal. What's going to be the next one? What's up, Fee? Yeah, Fee can gain 25 pounds easy as well. So the question becomes, right, is like, what are you going to do to stay consistent to make sure that you don't fall out of it? Especially if your goal is kind of down the road, right? If your goal is like, in 5 years, I want to do X, you might need some shorter goals along the way to get you there, right? And so even for me, I was being realistic about it. And I was like, you know what? I'd like to say, I've dropped 25 pounds in a month, really, which is probably not very healthy. When I go kind of crazy or whatever, that's probably not healthy. But it's like, what will I do to make sure that I get there? So I had a very easy thing. I said, I'm going to walk every opportunity that I have when I'm listening to music. Very simple thing. I call it test driving beats, right? got a lot of beats to listen to from a lot of producers. So I walk when I listen to them as opposed to sitting down. Can't always do that, but that is absolutely the goal. So those little things really kind of help you, right? Because that's not even fully tied to the gym. But then what I do is when I get to the gym, if I had a week where I didn't walk that much, then I make sure that week I'm doing more cardio, right? Said to myself at the beginning of the year, actually a little bit earlier, if people watching my social media, as an example, I said, you know what? I could probably get some of the cardio up by just getting some shots up in the gym and then occasionally playing when I feel like it's safe to do so, right? So that's what I've done. And in most cases, I've built up to about a couple hours in the gym just shooting. And as a side benefit, as a side benefit of that, I gotta take this. I gotta take this. Yo, I'm doing the show. It's all good. All right. Yo, it's Quo. He says, "What's up?" All right, cool. I will. All right, man. I'll get back at you. Peace. So you guys getting the behind the scenes info. So that's Quo. He's saying what's up until you guys see him. So shout out to Quo. Shout out to Quo's new music is crazy. I've been working on some stuff. We go back and forth on best ideas and stuff like that. But let's get back to that. And so check it out. Yeah, sounds like Jay Cruz. Yeah, it was Jay Cruz. So a side benefit, right? You get better, right? You get better. Like you can see you kind of like chart the results. You're like, oh, I get better. And then getting better is encouraging. So then you want to do it more, right? So the thing is, I think when you set like lofty goals that are like too high, this is what I hear everybody do, right? I hear it all the time. I hear it in school. I hear people like, yo, I want straight A's. And it's like, bro, you want straight A's? Like, so do I. But how are you going to feel when you get your first one that isn't, if that's your first thing out the woods? It's like me saying I want to walk into the gym and hit, 10 straight free throws and I haven't shot free throws for like a month and I'm not very good at them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's going to be a hard goal, right? But after a while, those hard goals become like laughable. It's like, oh my gosh, I can do that in my sleep, right? But when you're starting out, it's crazy. You can't do it. So the same is true in music. It's like people will say, yo, I want my song to be, number one on the charts, or I want it to, get a plaque and go in Billboard, or I want to make X amount of dollars or whatever. And I always try to remind people that if music is a passion, which it is for most people, right? It's a kind of a passion thing, that what number would you be happy that if someone just gave you for doing your passion, right? If someone walked up and said, yo, you're really dope at that. I want to pay you for doing your passion. Like what would be, no doubt, bro, no doubt, reading comments here, but not necessarily posting as many as I should. What would be nice? Like if someone says, yo, you're dope at painting. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to break you off like 15K, for your painting. Wouldn't you be motivated to paint for 50? If someone, you doing it anyways, right? You get 15K. I think of the same thing with the basketball analogy. Think of how rich and wealthy basketball players are, but you have to start somewhere. You have to get up, grind, do the AAU or whatever, you travel in leagues, get up, run drills, and do all that kind of stuff. But what if someone came by and said, you know what, to kind of supplement that, here's 20K, right? You'd be like, oh my gosh, I love this. I do it anyways. And that's going to actually make you get better, right? So I hear this all the time. People be like, yo, you've been doing it for so long. Like what motivates you, whatever. Getting those first checks for doing something that you absolutely love to do, all of a sudden you go, yo, this isn't impossible. This is actually fairly easy. And we're going to get into it tonight with a little bit of the money that's out there in hip hop. We're going to talk about top 30 richest rappers, according to one site. And then we'll talk about the other end of the spectrum too, because there's really a lot of smoke and mirrors in the game, right? But to stay consistent and to stay viable and to stay like just making money here and there from doing a few shows. Fee's a great example of that, right? Doing a lot of shows in their home area. They're setting the ground, they're setting the table, right? And they're staying active and they're sharpening the skills. And it motivates you as opposed to be a lack of encouragement. If you're saying, yo, I'm trying to make $1 million and you're only making a few thousand, you're going to be like, yo, like this is awful. Like my goal is like way off. So we got to start with, I believe, with realistic goals, whether, I'm going to be a mathematician or whatever. Okay. How's your multiplication skills? We see this all the time in academia. People will walk in, They haven't even taken like a placement test or anything. They've been out of school for a long time, and they just walk in. They're like, "Yo, I want to be an engineer." And you ask them why, and it's like, "Oh, I heard they make money." And it's like, "Okay, do you like engineering?" "Yeah, I think it's cool." But they don't really know what it involves and the level of math that it might take. So engineering, you know, spoiler alert, has a lot of math, right? Math is the language of engineering. When people say they're an engineer, they're a mathematician who likes physics, right? Someone says they're a physicist. They are essentially doing math as their language on a day-to-day basis, right? We all kid and joke and we prod each other about who's better and everything. Is it the mathematicians or the physicists and all this kind of stuff? But at the end of the day, we're all pretty handy with math, right? Because the universe, for some reason that we actually don't understand, right, is encoded with this language of mathematics that allows us to do things with incredible high precision. There's everything that we've accomplished in terms of science comes down to math, and it really comes down to calculus. And here's a little statistic for you that's rough. You can check the stats and see if they're exact or on point, but approximately 12 to 13% of the people in the world will actually take calculus at some point in their life. We'll take it as a course, right? And I bring this up because, of course, we know that's not an easy class to pass. Saying one of my streams is having connectivity issues. Okay, thanks, Restream. So when you cut into 13%, right? Like imagine it was a 50% fail rate. 50% fail rate means 6.5% people are going to pass it, right? And it's probably not that far off because a lot of people withdraw. They get in it, that counts too for that 13% stat, right? They get in it, they withdraw. They're like, nope, this isn't for me. Or they fail it, right? Or let's say they don't fail it, they just don't do well, right? So the amount of people that are, let's say, good at calculus, I think we can make a rough estimate to say that it's lower than 5%, right? Because that would be just people even passing like Calc 1, right? Proficiently would be probably at 5 or lower than 5%. I say this because every great invention, every piece of technology that we've been able to do has come with math being the basics as the language, and you really need to understand calculus to do some high-level stuff. It's like that with music too. It's you either need to be proficient, and I'm going to use calculus as the stand-in, as being excellent in your trade, right? And for me, being in my field, you got to be pretty good at calculus, right? On the math side of things. If you're going to be, let's say we're using a rapper or whatever, you better be really proficient at writing songs or performing songs or musicality or your personality. All of those kind of things need to be hitting to make you be somebody who has a chance of being pretty successful in the industry. You don't have to do all of them. You better do one exceptionally well, or all of them pretty well, or a couple of them really well, and then start building your contacts and stay consistent, right? So if you can do any of those things, stay consistent, be really good at any of those kind of 4 things, you might say 5 or 6, I'm just saying them quickly, of what you consider the key elements of that industry, and you get motivated by small wins, you can stay consistent for a long, long time and stay energized by it. All too often, we see the other side of the coin. It's people go, yo, I'm going to go back to the calculus analogy. Yo, I want to be an engineer. How's your math? I was pretty bad in algebra when I had it in high school. Or like, I took a college class or whatever, and I withdrew or something. It's going to be a hard path. You can do it, but someone has to sit you down and be like, and that's kind of what I'm doing, hopefully, for some of the musicians right now. Someone has to sit you down and say, it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. But the path of least resistance may not be for you if you have poor math skills and you want to go into a field like engineering or mathematics or science. It's probably not for you. It's going to take longer to get there. Like, do you just need a degree to get one for some job, or it's just been a lifelong goal, or it's going to help you more in the industry? Fine. But you don't have to have a science degree. And I'm saying this is someone who's a STEM guy, right? And it's the same thing in music. It's like, okay, what is your goal? If you start out with the goal of, I want to be, I want to work full time in the music industry, and I want to make over $100K a year. It's very possible, but let me ask you a couple questions, right? Like, do you have any of those things we're talking about? Musicality, a musical skill, something inside of the industry, like you're a great writer, or at least you have a network and you're a pretty likable person who people are happy to work with, like you play well in the sandbox kind of thing. There's a lot of people who are just, and I talk about it, just jerky boys or jerky girls. They don't play well in the sandbox and no one wants to work with them, right? And for a long time, I've kind of not liked doing a lot of collaborations because of that. That's one of the reasons, or one of the many reasons, right? It's been a little bit easier for me over COVID because you don't necessarily have to be with that many people to actually do it. So it kind of works out well. I do a whole nother show called Introverse on Sundays. Check us out at 6:30 right here, same place too. Me and my man Bernard, and we talk about some of these things. Like for me, an uphill climb, especially when I was younger, is being an introvert, someone who'd rather sit in and write and rap and, do these kind of solo kind of adventures. It's a little bit tough to get out in the social spaces. Like I wasn't like Mr. Social, like, hey, I got a million friends. Nah, I got like five, and I'm cool with that, and only child, you kind of get into yourself and you hit internal, but you got to take these sort of assessments, I think, and be like, yo, like, who am I and what can I do? Right. That might lend itself to becoming either or, a mathematician, a musician, whatever, what have you, that requires you to sit down, buckle down, and figure it out, right? Might require you reading a bunch of books, skipping a lot of birthday parties, skipping a lot of whatever it is you need to do. But if you're willing to take that grind and your goals aren't like super high out the gate, like, yeah, maybe you want to make $100,000 a year doing music or whatever, but it's not going to necessarily happen very easily in the first 3 years. You're giving yourself a window and then what are the small achievables along the way? Maybe you work part-time in the industry, right? Maybe you can make a goal that, okay, as a performer, if you're like a live musician performing, I will play at least once a month. I will do a show. That doesn't sound like much, but trust me, once a month for a live show, especially if you got a lot of equipment and stuff like that, can become a burden if your main thing is working somewhere else, right? It might be twice. I'll let y'all in. For me, my goal is always 20 to 30 shows a year. That's the number. And I mean paid shows, right? Like traveling to go speak at a college and perform there, right? That for me is a perfect number in terms of where it doesn't rattle my world. It's workable and it's good. And I'll just do a little math, right? Imagine that you're getting your minimum ideal amount of money, right? For what you feel is your worth. That might be $5,000 if it's out of college, right? Do that math. What's 20 times 5, right? You're talking $100,000. So you can kind of see where the numbers kind of come into play. But you also need to say, like, to yourself, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? Am I at the $5,000 level yet? Maybe not. Maybe it's $1,000, right? Maybe it's $500. Whatever the numbers are, the numbers don't really matter. But at some point, you got to be kind of saying, doing the math ahead of time and saying, okay, if I could get to this point, that would be great. So am I going to start out there? No, right? You literally have to undercut other people who are more established, especially if you're performing at some place where there's a lot of people they could choose from, which is the case. It is a promoter's market. We know artists are paying to play, which I'm not a fan of. It's something I've never done, but I know a lot of people feel the need to do that, right? To have the exposure and get out there and be like, yo, I'm going to pay this promoter to do this kind of show. That has become the business model because of what we're talking about. Because like there's an oversupply of artists who are just dying to get anything. And then promoters can, make it can be in their favor when that's the situation. The promoter can do a little bit less work and can have the artist, do all the hustling that promoters typically had to do. And promoters have gotten smart. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not my particular model. But it's a model that's very understandable. It works pretty well. And if people are upfront about it, it's perfectly viable, right? But as an artist, how's that going to get you to making the revenue if you're paying the money to get the show? What is the goal, right? A certain amount of eyeballs are going to see you, I suppose. Once you start talking about those eyeballs seeing you, you can start talking about things like Google, Facebook, YouTube ads that are well placed. You might want to do that as opposed to paying some promoter to open up for a show where there's a bunch of other people open up for a show and there's nobody really there and you're doing all the work. Unless maybe you say to yourself, hey, I need a dope video in a dope venue with a bunch of people watching me. Then that might work towards your plan. But if you haven't sat down, thought it out, written it out, and gone back and forth with another human, almost like kind of we're doing right now, you may not like hear yourself talk and you may not think about some of the fallacies in the logic, right? So I always try to tell people to walk it back. Because there's no rush, especially, I'm really talking to the people who love it. I'm assuming the people who love it would be the only people who potentially would be watching something like that, right? Not the people who just want to get rich quick. But if you really love it, and that's what you're trying to do, start with small goals. Yo, you might want to play if you got kids, you got family members, you should be thinking about that network and like, okay, where do they go to school? Where do they go to church? Where do they work? Are there any inroads for me to do? And this is what we do in every single industry, and we don't often think this way in music. We start thinking about, yo, I want to play at the Apollo. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I want to play at the Garden. I want to play at the Kennedy Center. All these kind of things that are like, seriously, are you really at that point yet? That you can do that, and someone could pay you to do that, as opposed to you paying them, right? Even if you can get to neutral, which is you're not having to pay to play, and you're just getting in like to open at first, that might be a win. It sure as heck was in the beginning of my career. Like countless shows doing them for nothing, right? And you still can make those decisions if like a friend calls or whatever. Yeah, make that decision if it can work out, right? But then you're saying on the back end, okay, what am I going to do to supplement the fact that this is another day that I'm leaving my home in the comfort of here, right, to go do something else, which when people are depending on you maybe at home, maybe that's not a smart move. So this is what I encourage people to do. Come up with a number that's reasonable for the amount of paid shows that you'd like to get this year, right? I know it's the middle of the year, maybe say from now to next 4th of July or something, right? Even though it's 22nd, but you get what I'm saying. It's about a year, right? Say, all right, I want to get, maybe it's five paid shows. And my number right now that I think is reasonable for me to do, if I was a club, you might say, I don't know, it depends what you are. Maybe it's $200, right? Maybe it's $100. Maybe it's just drinks at the bar and $50 for gas money, right? Let that count. And record that you did that show. Write it down somewhere. Keep a spreadsheet of the fact that you did that show. Who was there? Run it like it's a business, right? I also umpire and I officiate basketball. I just started umpiring this year. I've been talking my whole life that I'm going to do it. And I'm like, I finally do it this year. Same thing. I got a spreadsheet, right? A spreadsheet of every game that I'm doing, who I worked with, what happened, what was the score, how much I'm getting paid for that game. Because I'm an independent contractor on that, right? Same thing with basketball. And this can make you thousands of dollars in between the gaps. I'm kind of advocating for that too, for other people who are doing these flexible kind of careers, because you need to have flexibility. It's another issue to consider. Where are you going to find the ability? What kind of career are you going to be able to do that will supplement this, that is flexible? So at a drop of a hat, you can go do that show. You might want to consider something. It doesn't have to be what I'm saying, but the reason I've chosen those, I love baseball, I love basketball, makes it really easy. I really think we should always be doing stuff we enjoy so we won't be miserable people. I get to block the schedule, right? I block it out. We use a system called Arbiter. Some people have probably heard of Arbiter. You can block out your availability, right? This works perfectly for me. Not perfectly. I've had some glitches in the matrix, let me say. But blocking out the days you don't want. Right now, I have everything blocked out. I got like the next 3 weeks blocked out. I did a game 2 nights ago. I did a game 4 days before that. And before that, it was like a couple weeks. I pick and choose. There's nobody screaming at me. They need you, but they're not going to scream at you because they're not your boss. You're an independent contractor. So if you're an artist, you might want to go do that. Like these are like things that people don't always tell you because they want to make it look like it's smoke and mirrors. People don't want to admit that they actually work, right? I, of course, have that in my name. So there's no, I'm a professor. I'm a professor, right? And I wear it out there and I use it to advertise what I'm doing. But it's the same thing for basketball and baseball. We think about why you do it. Well, it's healthy and I like it and it pays money and it's flexible. Dope. And it's, by the way, it's also something I could picture doing when I'm old and gray. Or grayer. Kind of get, not yet, but it's coming. It's coming, right? So it's something that you could say, yo, that's something I could see myself doing more of, right? It's smart. So what is the thing that you can do that isn't going to mess up somebody else's world as a job? You can't be working a traditional 9 to 5 very easily because there becomes no opportunity for you to get out of that. Unless you just say as part of your plan, because remember I said make a long-term plan. Maybe you're going to have a plan that's a 3-year or 5-year plan. And for this year, maybe you're working full-time 9 to 5 and next year. And then you're working it into part-time and you've saved enough and you've also added in something that could be flexible. I would advocate for what I'm doing. I would advocate if you like a sport, referee it, officiate it. Man, Lord knows they need people out there. That's not for every personality type, and it's not for every temperament. It lends itself well to people that are in the teaching world, however. It's a similar skill set in many cases. And if you like sports, why not, right? But you got to think about these things. We used to talk about these in my group Invasion. Shout out to Sick Man and Presence. Presence, once in a while, especially when I was in Boston, would do my hype man kind of stuff. Is dope rapper. He's someone who could come, especially on a night show. I know I could call him and do. He could come, but I really couldn't call Sick Man. Why? He's a barber, right? And he needs to make his money leading into the nights in most cases and weekends. That's when a lot of the shows are. So it becomes a difficult lifestyle. It's somewhat flexible, and now he owns his own place, so he can be a lot more flexible with that. But you got a boss showing, you're gonna have riffs, and you're gonna have people griping at you. So a lot of people are like, yo, I'm gonna be a barber and a rapper, that'll work. And it's like, okay, how well do you know the ownership? Are you opening your own spot? What's your hustle there? Shout out to my man Checkmark, who's totally made that a hustle and just a world class at both kind of thing. People go for him to get their cuts, and people know his skills as an MC, and it's like, they both kind of feed each other in a way. I know he's not like advertising them both at the same time kind of stuff, but it's a lifestyle choice that works, especially if you're really cool with the person who owns the shop and you live around the corner. Makes a lot of sense, right? Now, my man D used to live around the corner from his spot, and he went way out to Waltham, living in Cambridge. We lived together for years in Cambridge. And it's shout out to the whole fam. They're all still there, of course. But it's tough if you don't live right there. Now you got to consider when you're driving. I had in my career, right? Give you guys a little bit of a can we talk moment. I went to Chelmsford for high school, and so Chelmsford's not like the mecca for hip hop, right? By no stretch. But there's some people there who can be a fan base, like any school, anywhere you go, right? That can be a core. When we had records coming out, yeah, the school's behind you, especially if you're smart enough to, hey, let's do our talent shows. Let's do the college shows. Let's do whatever we can do, right? Community shows, blah, blah, blah. You get people into you. They know you then, and you might stick around for the ride for a little bit. So it's cool to do that. Shout out to Oliver, who was here last week. Same thing. Hyperion, he's got his school behind him. That's dope, right? Not every school is as ours certainly wasn't like his sounds to be. But I bring this up because it's like, all right, if you're in high school, you got kids that are gonna be going into middle school or high school. Use that fan base. Use them to gravitate with you. Stay in touch with them, right? Have people that can do some jobs that need to. People are excited when they have less of a life going on. When you're in high school, you don't get that much that you gotta, worry about as compared to when you get a little bit older. But then, like in college, what are you going to do with the next step, right? And so when we get to college, we were making some money doing high school shows. We actually, one of our very first shows was a paid very well show for us, which we were like, we kind of had rosy glasses at that point. We were like, yo, this is just easy. Money's going to come. And that is not the situation. It was just real luck, as fate would have it out the gate, right? And opportunity and whatever. And here's the thing, like, there's a lot to say about this, but it's like, you got to do self-inventory. Like you hear me humorously saying all the time, man, I was terrible when I was at that. Yeah, terrible comparatively to like when you look back, and you could say you look back 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, whatever the amount of years you can look, but you can go, boy, I was terrible then. But in retrospect, compared to your field, like where are you right now? Like compare yourself around. Like I was never like bad compared to the people who were already out. It was like I was hanging, right? Which gave me motivation. But if you're not hanging with the people that are kind of doing it, like at least on your level, and compare yourself to people who are on a major stage as well. If you're nowhere in that arena, you do have to start to reevaluate and say, okay, what's my time commitment going to be to this? Because you can literally do anything to get better at if you want to. But again, it's an uphill climb. The skill set's not there. You want to be a rapper, you've ever written a rhyme. You want to be a rapper, you ever made a beat. Have you ever played an instrument? Have you ever performed on a stage, right? Assuming those basics are out of the way and the answers are yes to some of those things, it's like, all right, how much time are you going to sharpen the axe, right? How much time are you going to take to sharpen the axe, and where are you going to find the time to do the silly stuff like I do? I still go walking, listening to beats, right? There's a little bit of multitasking there. Multitasking is a little bit of a fallacy because it usually means you're not doing something as well. But those things you can do when you're on autopilot, like walk, are things when, of course, you can also be listening. Don't just be listening to the new music that you think is dope. You got to be listening to beats that you think are dope for you to rap on. So people be like, yo, who do you like right now as an artist? I'm the worst person to ask because 80% of the music I listen to is my own, or music that will be my own. I listen to friends, fans, like those kind of things, people I know, their stuff, before I go listening for my own relaxation and casualness. That's like 10 to 20% when I'm in my car and I feel like my job's done. that I'm like, all right, let me check out, let me go pop in this Pharoah Monch or whoever it is I want to listen to, Johann Bach or something, right? Like whatever it is that you want to do, cool, but just find that time to say, yo, I'm going to put some serious time into it. So back to the school thing, right? So you start out, you do anything in school, you're thinking about doing some a career. It's that early, real. It really has to be. Like if you're thinking that, don't trivially go for something in school, high school or college or trade that is not going to be conducive to the life that you're trying to settle. Because this is what a lot of people do. They love it. They love it. They love it. They love it. And they go, yeah, I love this really dope. Yo, I'm gonna get some money. I'm also gonna go to school and I'm gonna get this money doing X. And then it's like, okay, how are you gonna do the other thing exactly? So you're only gonna put a very little amount of time at it and you're not at the skill level yet you want to be. When is this gonna happen when more and more things get stacked? So think carefully about what the career choices that you're gonna do. I think anything that tangentially connects to the entertainment industry at all is a smart move because it's a forgiving industry that has a lot of carryover and overlap to these kind of careers. Like I just sent an email today to one of the heads of like jobs for a university, right, in DC. And so I'm sending this connection of like these pro sports teams are hiring. I have communications with the pro sports team, right? And they're like, yo, we know you at the schools and stuff like that, and you're speaking all the time to younger people. Yo, we're doing a job fair, and it's in the entertainment industry. It's in the sports arenas. Some of them are really good jobs. Others are like, concessions or something like that. But a lot of them are really dope jobs that I think are really dope. Like I'd be like, yo, I'd do that job. Like that's crazy, right? So could you actually be in the entertainment industry as a career? And I think the answer is yes. If you were like me and like math, a great job would be being a statistician for like one of the. I think about it all the time. I'm like, yo, I'd love to be a statistician for the Celtics or something like that, right? And then I do have that thought. I'm like, how flexible would that be? Like, do I really want to be sitting in the back room doing stats for the Celtics, or could I work from home and do it? These things are huge. So if you're not thinking currently about like working from home and all that stuff, I think you're making a mistake. Like for the minute if you want to open the lock and win the combination lock, or you want to win the lottery, right? It's like flexibility, ding, decent pay, ding, something that allows me to make my own schedule. I know that's kind of like flexibility, but it's a little bit different, right? Flexibility might mean you have forgiving supervisors, right? Or no supervisor, right? You can come and go as you please, that kind of stuff. Or someone who's tolerant if you do have a supervisor, right? And then flexibility to make your schedule is a little bit different, right? Ding. And then like, is this have carryover in the industry that I'm in? And if not, could you make a niche for yourself that is defined by that thing that you've chosen to do? And if I'm not a walking example for that, I don't know who is, right? Like I was thinking this out in my head, thinking this is stupid. But I kept going, wait a minute, this isn't that stupid. I could actually be an educator because I feel like that's what I'm doing when I'm on the stage. And I feel like I should be doing more of that. And I feel like I should be speaking. And I feel like I'm always going to do music. And I'm going to do it at the highest level I know how and only attempt to get better. And then it's like, could I put those together and make that a selling feature? Ta-da! Right? And like that works. So those are the questions. This is the math that we have to do. We have to sit down and say, yo, what is this going to work for me? And if it isn't, then is there midnight oil you can grind? It doesn't have to be midnight, but it's like, where are the gaps that you can find, even if you have a relatively traditional schedule? It might mean a gap you have to make. It might mean you asking your family or friends for help. Like, in other words, you might have kids and you may be like, you know what? I need 1 day a week where I can work on this for like 3 hours. Could you possibly watch, Junior for 3 hours on Tuesday? Maybe you'll pay them. Right? Maybe you got that flexibility from the job, because you don't want to be asking people, unless it's like people that are dying to do that for you, but you don't want to be putting people out for your dream and your sacrifices. You should be prepared to pay that something, it goes a long way. If you're asking a friend or a family member to do something and you like, it's not just gratis and all the time. Yeah. Anybody's going to help you out now and then. But it's like, if it becomes all the time, like every Tuesday, yo, bro, that's a lot. You know what I'm saying? So like, what are you going to do to compensate someone? Doesn't matter if family, friends, wife, husband, kid, aunt, anything, when you're asking that much. It's crazy. Maybe grandparents are the one exception for seeing the little ones or something like that. But, you get where I'm going. But we have to have that mind state all the time. Are you that person who, when people see you coming, they turn around and go the other way because you're an asker, you're a taker, and you're not a giver, right? That goes a long way. Like when you come around to people go, yo, I can't wait to talk to that person. Like this person isn't a taker. They're not trying to take my time, take my energy, take my money, take my thoughts, take my ideas, take. They're actually trying to give. They're actually trying. So some of that is self-inventory that we got to do. And I think those things add up. All right. So let's get into the money part. So not to be all doom and gloom, because some of that can sound a little depressing. I'm going to share with you this screen, if I can get it to project here, right? Which I think 30 richest rappers in the world. But I want you to take a guess. Who are the 30 richest rappers in the world? Like who's in the top 5? Like come up with your top 5 and don't look. And by the way, a rapper, the definition of rapper, I mean, they are or were, and most of these are current rappers. Like you might, all right, I'm going to give one away. Is LL Cool J a current rapper? Yes, he would count because he's such a rapper is what he did. And even though he's not rapping that much, he still does shows. He's still, he's getting that Grammy money all the time. Like he's still doing the thing. Okay. Whereas like Will Smith is probably on pause, from like the rapper thing, even though every now and then he does his stuff, and we all know what happened recently, but whatever. So I think we can take Will Smith maybe off the list if I remember correctly. He's not on there. But outside of that, think of like who your 5 people are. There's some big producers that rap as well. Hint, right? Who yes, most definitely will be on that list. Or some moguls, right? They all count. All right. So think about those moguls, maybe with the exception of Will Smith, and think about who's on your list. And then think about how far out, like the top 30 richest rappers will be. Like, what amount of money do you think when I say top 30 we're talking about? And this is of everybody, right? And so we're going to name 30. Now, I say this all the time. I'll be like, yo, there's like 20 to 50 rappers in the whole world that are really making that money. Outside of, and when you start getting 50, it starts tailing off. But it's like outside of that, it's all smoke and mirrors. And even some of these you got to take with a grain of salt. They're just going by reported numbers that they think are real, right? So it's not, this is not like a peer-reviewed paper or anything like that, right? But reasonably, and I say reasonably reputable source. But you got to take it with a grain of salt, all right? So who are you thinking? You got somebody? Think about it. Cool. All right, I'm going to get into it a little bit. So... oh man, I started at the bottom, so you're already seeing some. Had that on the wrong side. All right, top 30 richest rappers in the world. Here we go. You're never gonna guess who's number 30. T.I. All right, so think about how big T.I. was, how massively huge he was, right? And when you think about how big he was for a while, and he's still relatively big. It's not like he's fell off. $50 million. So I'm sure if you're like me, you're sitting there going, yeah, I could make $50 million. But all that work that he's done, right, that makes him look like, you'll see rappers that look like the richest humans in the world. I mean, there's CEOs right now that make that like in a year. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you look at the owners of the NBA, Jeff Bezos sitting right over there. You think about 50 million, that is chump change, right? This is all the years he's done. He's been able to figure out a way to pull out 50 mil. All right. Now, I want you to look at some of the things that have allowed him to get to this point, right? Rapper, songwriter, actor, entrepreneur, record producer, signed his first record deal in 1999 and has released countless albums and starred in multiple Hollywood films. That Hollywood money is a theme that you will see consistently running through here. This I did not expect. Millionaire. Are you kidding me with that? I was like, really? I'm a little questionable about this one. If he's still actually worth that money, but maybe he bought some assets and they've appreciated, but because it does say businessman and investor, and admittedly, I'm not that up on what he's doing right now. Wiz Khalifa makes sense. Also super huge, even about like, I'd say 8 years ago, just like incredibly huge. Still big, but we're getting a little richer now, right? 60 million. Big money, right? Psy. Y'all forgot about Psy. Gangnam Style, right? That's what happens when you get billions of views, right? Look at this. South Korean music artist who appeared at the MTV Europe Music Awards, Gangnam Style, 2001. This dude made stupid internet money, right? And it's just continued to swell. J. Cole showing up on the list, right? 60 million. All right. And this is from a site, by the way, called wealthygorilla.com. This is the top 20 richest rappers in the world list, but really it's top 30. Ice-T, where's he getting that money from these days? Well, remember, massive clout as an original dope MC, right? I was gonna say original gangster, but it's very true. Um, Definitely an OG, and flip that into acting. He got in that Color soundtrack back in the day, and he stayed in that movie lane. He figured it out. He don't forget he was running the syndicate and a lot of those actors and stuff back then, rappers, and he knows what he's doing. Rev Run. Okay, Rev Run. I'm glad to see that he's got some net money in there. That's good. We know all about Run. Nas, a lot of business deals have led to this because he was teetering on bankruptcy for a long time. People remember those Khalees issues where he didn't have money for child support and all that kind of stuff, right? Love his full name, Nasir bin Oludara Jones. Love it. Don't forget his dad is Oludara, the famous jazz musician. And do we think Nas's backstory is a little over the top, right? It's an amazing story, but like some of the things that he talks about, some of the things he doesn't talk about, interesting. Be great to get him more candid. Lot of great business deals that have popped out for him that have went incredibly well on the investing side. Will I Am, Flat Earther. You can rule ignorance. You can manipulate the illiterate. You can do whatever you want when the people are uneducated. So that goes in line with corrupt business, corrupt politics. Will I Am. I think Flat Earth. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Kendrick Lamar. That seems to only be going up. Akon from the Diamond Mines himself. 80 million. That locked up, worked well for him. Timberland, of course, we're going to see Timberland on the 85 mil. Nicki Minaj, I thought 85 million, but not a bad day at the office. Here we got Beastie Boys checking in back to back. Right, they made crazy bang. Pitbull, did you forget about Pitbull? Don't forget about Pitbull, baby. Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide. He's Mr. Worldwide for a reason, right? He's Mr. Worldwide for a reason. That is his business plan. 100 mil. So now we're in the 100 mil lane. Birdman, of course, right? Mostly on the business side, of course, right? Cash Money Records, we know his story. LL, there he is, jumping in at $120 million, 13 studio albums. I believe, was it like the first 10 were all platinum or something like that? Maybe 11 or 12, I don't even know. Swiss Beats, another dude was on teetering on bankruptcy at one point, at least as the rumors say, and Alicia Keys has probably helped stabilize that a little bit. Snoop, talking about Snoop's like a top 5 richest rapper. Well, according to this, not really. 150 million, not a bad day, or I should say lifetime on the charts. Totally a businessman, entrepreneur, and just character who people love. He is everything that was spoke about earlier, just in terms of like being a person that people like, musicality, can write. He's more of a giver than a taker, just that personality. Let's read his quote. If it's flipping hamburgers at McDonald's, be the best hamburger flipper in the world. Whatever it is you do, you have to master your craft. Amen, bro. Lil Wayne, of course, 150 mil. Cash Money Records. He is a smarter dude than people want to give him credit for. Ice Cube, speaking of which, we know that as well. And shout out to his son showing up in, I'm rocking the shirt right now, and if Mandalorian, shout out to his son showing up in Obi-Wan Kenobi. The big come up right there. Actually, it was kind of on the humble, like it kind of snuck in. It was like, oh, but you really think about that. It's like, yo, Ice Cube's son is in Star Wars. It's dope. With a legit role. Drake, speaking of actors, right? It's just crazy money now we're getting into. Pharrell, of course. See, and those are the kind of people you forget about when you're doing a list like this, because I don't think of Pharrell as really a rapper, right? But, a little bit. Master P, yup. And that's crazy. Pharrell and Master P back to back. 200 million. Unreal. Eminem, only makes sense. 230 million they got him checking in at. Not a bad day at the office. Dr. Dre, my goodness, 780 million they got him tipping in for. Dre Beats obviously made a big piece of that, but he would still be in the top 30 even if it wasn't for that. Sean Combs, obviously, we don't even need to read that, almost $1 billion. And here's where it gets questionable. You got Jay-Z and you got Kanye West. Kanye, obviously from the fashion side, another dude who was teetering on bankruptcy. This evaluation is ridiculous. Most people have it at like 2 or 1 or whatever, and even that is shaky because you're evaluating a stake in a company where the dude was crying like a year ago about not having money for basic stuff, or 2 years ago it was like on the brink of bankruptcy, and here they're trying to say it's from royalties and all that stuff. No, it's not. Some of his money's from royalties, but not anything in the billions from royalties. That's for sure. Um, but that fashion side is definitely paying the bills, getting it done, and you know, the whole world according to Kim Kardashian and all that stuff. If it's played right, I always think with a personality like him, it could be, um, it could lead into that world. So yeah, so that's sort of the tipping out point, and I like to give that after I talk about the reality section, just because we sometimes think of those as the gold standard, and it's like I don't even think about any of that. I don't think about any of those people as like a blueprint or whatever. Because if you're thinking about that, I mean, you can, this that might be your thing. Like you like, yo, I want to be on that level. Cool, great, cool. Just know though, only 30 of them in the history of ever are going to be on that list, right? There's 30 people on that list out of every single rapper you can imagine. Now, I can probably name 300 rappers that I know personally. If I had to sit down and come up with names, I could probably give you 300 names of people who are good rappers who never made a penny. Right? So, and I've probably met, I don't know, 3,000 rappers. Almost all of them, I'd say, 20 of them make money. Not talking about those people, like all the other people that I know that are just like working, right? Trying to work and get out there. For the most part, and let me stop sharing. For the most part, people don't have the plan down. So it's like we got to address it and say, like, what are the things that you can do to make it come true? So we've talked about before, getting music synced in movies and video is huge. Having your PR stuff straight when you don't have the money for a PR agent, like having press kits down, like is just so huge, right? When someone calls, an opportunity comes up, it's probably only coming up for a short amount of time. Be ready. On your cell phone, do you have links to your videos? Do you have links to your press kit, or do you at least to a bio that has a lot of that embedded in it, right? Like a place in your bio where people can also find the music, right? At a minimum, we talk about the pre-stream links. Let me give you one right here. So I'll show you this. This is what they look like when you're doing them through any kind of label. So here is the pre-save link to my new song that's coming out August 18th. That's Dark Poetry. That is the pre-save link. This one's from Sony Orchard. And notice what's in here. Most companies are going to send you something like this these days. Pre-save, you got your Spotify's and your Apple Music, all this kind of stuff, right? And you go down to the bottom, when you get this, it looks like there's only 4, but if you scroll it, you see, they got SoundCloud in there, they got title, right? Whatever. People click this. Here's the thing a lot of artists aren't even aware of. These turn into the streaming and download links when you're done. So right now it's pre-save. You go in there and it'll give you a reminder that the song came out. And by the way, pre-save Dark Poetry by Professor Lyrical. I'll be posting these and you'll have a chance to do all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying we all post stuff to our social media, like whatever, our food that we're eating, the games we're watching, whatever we're doing. Me, it's shooting baskets or spitting rhymes or whatever. But when you get a chance, like think about how would you share this? Like think about that. How would you share a pre-save link? Would you just do it to Twitter because it's just a link? Would you put it in your Instagram, like click here for the bio kind of thing? If it's me, I'm taking a picture of this, like a screenshot with a snipping tool, and I'm putting that as the picture that I'm sharing, and then I'm doing the link, right? And then I'm embedding this picture into one of those kind of documents we're talking about where it's already hyperlinked, right? So, and it's PDF'd for someone. They just click that thing and they're like, oh, here's the pre-save, right? And like, do you have it in your phone? And by the way, all these long links, what's stopping you from turning those into little tiny links that have cool names, right? I'm sure Dark Poetry's like maybe used, but if I wanted the tinyurl.com, that Dark Poetry pre-save, sounds logical, right? Or whatever bit.ly or whatever it is you want to use to shorten it, make it easy on people, make it look decent. You can, with the tools are there to do stuff and make it look decent on your own. So what I'm saying is be prepared. for the opportunity that somebody says, yo, I like that, or yo, I like you. Hey, let me hear your music, right? How are you going to give it to someone easy in this day and age where we don't really physically have products like we used to? So at least your virtual game has to be on fleek. It's got to be ready at a fingertip, right? Or at least like you tell some. I did this the other day. DJ was like, "Yo, I love that song." It was actually a song Fee and I do. Uh, Dope DJ. Really respect him. Everything he does, his grind is insane, right? Everything he does, he's just amazing, right? A music DJ, like he breaks records, right? And he was like, "Yo, I love that track. Like, can you get that to me right now?" Am I going to big time him and be like, "No, you got to wait till we're going for release. We're going for ads on August 2nd. You have to." No, man, he gets the whole pack. But I tell him, I say, "Yo," like in his case, I was like, "Yo, I'll probably get that to you in 10 minutes." And I was just pulling in the house. And I'm still like a little kid with this stuff. I pull in the house. I'm like, "Yo, I'm excited. I'm going to send the link to someone." Like, I never get tired of that stuff. Now, if you have the time, right? If you don't have the time and you can't do it, you don't have flexibility and you got a schedule going, you got to have someone else doing that who's on text. You're like, "Yo, send this now." But you already have it arranged, right? It's the blah, blah, blah link or whatever you call it, right? It's press kit, whatever you want to call it. Doesn't really matter what you call it. I can give you the terminology and so forth. For DJs, it's DJ pack, right? Where you got the MP3 in there, you get the clean version, the dirty version, the edited one for the DJ to play at the beginning that's mostly instrumental, kind of a slimmed down version that they just play while they're talking, all that stuff, right? Acapellas, so they can do any kind of remixes they want, and a picture and maybe a bio, right? Like that's really what most people want. The DJs want all that MP3 stuff, but you have that on lock somewhere. There's no excuse not to have a Dropbox or to have Google Docs or any of the other countless services out there that do this stuff. Linktree, whatever you're gonna do, just have it be and research it. Yo, what's stopping you in 10 minutes to just get on right now and go? Like if I was gonna ask Google that question, what would it be? Resources to save multiple links for musical artists. There's probably gonna be a whole lot of custom ones you can see there. And what always irritates me is when an artist goes, "Yo, how'd you find that?" Like, bro, I did a search. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did a search. If I didn't know it yesterday, it's like we live in the Matrix, bro. It's like I didn't really know how to encode not MP3s. I didn't know how to do that. Wave files. I just had to figure it out the other day. So I was like, "Oh, let me find the new, watched an instructional video on the thing that took like 3 minutes to watch. Actually, I had it on pause while I was doing it, hit it a couple more times. Man, if you ain't doing that on the regular, then I don't know what you're doing. You're just waiting for things to fall in your lap. It's like, hopefully you're doing that kind of stuff. And then and then you each one teach one, you share it to somebody else. But if we're sitting home and we're just like, "Yo, waiting for the phone to call," and you haven't done all the basics so that I can actually be true to my word and tell that dude, be like, "Yo, I'll send that to you in 10 minutes. Yo, I did. I sent it to him in 10 minutes. And then the next day I sent him a better version. I was like, "Oh, yo, I meant to send you this too. Here's a link with everything," right? Because I didn't quite have it down. But that's what I mean. I wasn't going to big time him and be like, "Yo, I don't have all my stuff prepared." You get the MP3 at a minimum. You know what I'm saying? And I did have the little press kit kind of stuff started. And I'm like, he got a little of that. And then he got the real link, right? I'm not going to not do that. Are you kidding me? Like, of course I'm going to do that. I don't care who it is. If someone's doing that and I have the time, I'm always going to attempt to do that. But I'm also going to say, if I know that I'm busy, you got to be aware of your schedule. But yeah, this might take me a little longer than usual. I would love to get that to you in like 10 minutes, but yeah, it might take me a few hours to be honest, or maybe tomorrow morning. Is that cool? You got to let people know that you care, that they're trying to help you. That is like so fundamental. If someone's trying to help you, let them know that you care, that they're trying to help you, and that you respect that. And it doesn't matter what level you're at. It's just, that's like human decency in a way, but it's also like a way to stay endeared to people so that they know that you're just like not like crazy head. And I'll say this too to my MCs out there. This is truthful. In real life, I'm a humble person. As an MC, I am not humble. Like as an MC, I believe I'm that dude, like 100%. So in my head, I could easily big time someone with that kind of philosophy going. And what I mean by that, I want to keep this separate, and this is an important point. I love what I do as an artist. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it, or I'd be working on it to get to a point that I love it, right? I love what I do as an artist. I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to get better. So if Joey from down the street who has some little internet show and it's like 2 people are listening, whatever, if dude's calling me and I have the time, I don't care who he is. I'm going to send it to him because I'm appreciative that a human being took the time to actually do that. Now, can I always follow up on that second? No. Can I always do it in 5 seconds? No. Are there levels to this? Of course, right? You might not stop traffic for Joey down the street, but you're going to get it to him when you can get it to him. And just be honest with people. Be like, yo, I'm going to try to get that to you as soon as I can. It might take a little bit, right? But for dude who called me, I'm jumping out my car, running in the house, and I'm like, yo, let me get this to you in 10 minutes, bro. I don't want you to even lose any minute over that. And there's just levels to that, and people should respect that, right? But in real life, my real life attitude is coming out in there. Like, I respect the human being, right? Like the humility, it's another human, like, say, yo, I'd like to listen to your stuff. Like, that's amazing. And it goes the other way around too. Like, I kind of expect that from other people too, especially if they don't even know who I am. And I'm just like, hey, yo, could I blah, blah, blah. Like, there's countless times in my life, people have no idea the other stuff that I do. It's just the dude walking down the street, right? And it's funny when sometimes those things, the script gets flipped, right? It's like it turns out that they don't even know the opportunity that you could potentially bring that person, right? Those interactions matter. And that's what I'm saying, that humility we need to have. But don't get it twisted as an MC. And I know all my MCs out there, many of us think the same way. We all think our stuff doesn't stink, right? Like, I know it stinks a little and I'm trying to clean it up, but I know it's a lot better than it was last year and the year before and the year before. And I've exceeded where I wanted to be even when I was little at it. So that's why I'm like, yo, I'm liking my stuff. I'm cool. I'm a big fan of myself, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to, follow up on something where somebody's trying to help me. That's what I'm trying to say with that. Like, I'm trying to say, even though I don't necessarily come across like that all the time, like, oh yeah, inside I'm thinking, yo, you want a 16? Okay, you picked the right person, right? You need this rap written for you? You picked the right person, right? But I'm not going to carry myself like that because that's just the egotistical MC part of me. That's not like the kid in me when I started like listening to music, watching TV, doing whatever. Like, stay who you are internally and let that other piece of you grow and blossom or whatever, and keep them separate as much as you possibly can. I try to keep that separate, and I know when they're merging together. I like when they're merging together, but I'm very aware that, like, oh, that's Pro talking. You know what I'm saying? That's Dr. Plore talking. Or that's, whatever. But I think it's important. I think it's important so people don't see us being jerky boys and girls and losing care with us as people. Because at the end of the day, we all want acknowledgement for what we do. You never get too big for someone to say, yo, I appreciate that. Man, I don't care what it is. Like, if someone's like, yo, I like that song, like, yo, dope, I like it too. I might be thinking, but I'm like, yo, you stopped and told me you like it, man, I did something right. Because I am biased, right? I am making music for myself fundamentally, first and foremost, that I'm sharing to others because of feedback people give you. And then you get more motivated and confident to do it. And then eventually you have the gall to ask for money for that, right? So here's where we're going to go, and I'm going to try to wrap it up pretty soon. The asking for money part. Let's talk about that. This is the tough part for a lot of people. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if it's even rap or not, right? What do you think your services are worth? Meaning, where do you fit in for the quality of work that you do? And for some of it has to be like, if it's playing in a club, you don't necessarily care about how great your quality is. They care about how many butts you're gonna put in the seat, right? So think about the situation that someone's asking. Are they asking you to write a song? Are they asking you to perform? Are they asking you to bring a crowd? Are you gonna be on their podcast? What is it that you're doing, and what is your worth, right? And have that answer ready, and be able to say it in a mirror like this. I'm gonna play both roles for you right now. I wish I could split my screen, but I can't really do it. It's just me. But I could try to do a little act, right? So, like, person over here, this is gonna be the person asking the question. All right. So it's gonna be, hey, Pro, I really liked your music. I was turned on. I found out you're a doctor and you're a math professor, and this is just amazing. I heard you speak. You do some TED Talks. I heard about your records. I checked out your history on Google. Oh my gosh, there were like 50 pages, whatever. Okay, so they've done their work, and they know you, and they're trying to acknowledge you, right? And we would love to have you come speak and perform to our XYZ. And we just want to know your availability. We're looking to have you come at the end of August and blah, blah, blah. And I know we're 100 miles away from you, but we just think it'd be amazing to have you come. And this is going to be a great opportunity. We can give you some great exposure, blah, blah, blah. Like, just wondering if you're interested and what we'd have to do to make that happen. All right. So that's what we did. All right. Now, imagine that there was like an email or a phone call, and that was the person getting back to you, and you're actually in the conversation with them, right? And now here you are over here, and this is you answering. I'm going to give you the answer I typically give. And this takes a long time to get to that point. And this is assuming you don't really know the person. You just know them from email or whatever. And I'm not going to do all the pleasantries and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to get into the meat potatoes of it pretty quickly. So I'll be like, yo, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I see you've done your research on me. Yeah, there's a lot out there. I've been doing this for a minute. This isn't something I obviously just started. And I appreciate you looking me up and taking the time. That still means a lot to me whenever someone's willing to do that, especially if they weren't necessarily familiar with my stuff before and you just did all the research. So yeah, the deal with me is I actually am a professor. I have a family as well, and I try to juggle doing music and being a professor, and speaking and performing and being razor sharp with my craft. And I do put a lot into it. Reason I bring all that up is because what it sounds like, what I'm hearing, if I don't have this wrong, is that you want me to travel to come out there in August, and I'm assuming to perform. So see what I'm doing here? I'm asking what it is, and I'm trying to say it back to them, right? What they're saying, because they didn't exactly say what they wanted to do, right? So I'm saying it back to them. So it sounds like you want me to perform, and this is what I also do. I tell them what I want, especially if they were loosey goosey with it, right? So see, that was kind of a loosey goosey description. Say, oh yeah, that's great, because I love to come out and speak and perform while I'm speaking, have a chance to meet the people that I'm speaking to, whether it's beforehand or after. I sit down in the boardroom with them. I'll come visit classes, actually, if I can be there. Because if I'm going to come and it's 100 miles away, I'm willing to stay for a little bit. I'm not just hopping the first flight I can get. I would love to be able to meet the people. So there's a couple ways that I usually do this. One is all inclusive. And what that means is that you're paying me. See how now I haven't even talked the number, but I'm telling them that they're paying me, right at the beginning. So it's all inclusive means that you're just paying me one flat fee and I take care of everything. So now I'm going to tell them all the things that they may not have thought about, because chances are this isn't their job. It might be, but even if it is, it's good for you to hear yourself say it and for them to hear you say it. So I'll take care of my Ubers to get to the airport, and I'll take care of my flight, and I'll take care of my hotel. I'll take care of all my meals and any incidentals that come up. I'll do all that stuff. On your end, you'd just be writing one check essentially for me to come through. You can PayPal it to me, or you can do whatever. Yeah, I have a lot of ways to set that up. But something clicked in my ear. But that's essentially one way to do it. And the other part is that you take care of all that stuff individually on top of the fee that I'd be charging you to come up. All right. So notice I didn't say a number, but I told them that they're going to be paying for me, right? Like, there's no chance I'm coming for free for 100 miles. It's not even in the human possibilities, right? It's never happening. Now, it did happen for the first 5-10 years I was doing stuff. I was like, yo, someone wants me to come perform. How amazing is that, right? The other thing is I also need to know what kind of industry that is that's bringing. Is it a corporation, which pays the most, right? Is it a school, which probably pays the second most, right? Is it, and by school I meant like college, right? Is it a high school? Is it a middle school? Whatever. Is it a library? Is it a pub? Is it a festival? Like what? That's on the lower side, right? People hear like festivals and like tours, and those can be on the real lower side, right? So if it's cha-ching, which is colleges, corporations, maybe even high schools in some cases, right? And I kind of know what like lane I'm going into, and I already have my magic numbers, and I'll share those with you. $5,000 you have to be comfortable saying if you're in the college realm, okay? And if you're doing what I'm doing at the particular level that I'm at, you just have to be comfortable saying that, right? But I know from people who are in the world with me, from going to conferences, conventions, performances, colleges, blah, 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 I know that 20 grand is definitely not out of the ballpark and is on par with many people who do what I do. And in fact, I would argue that I'm probably worth more. So that's just truthful in terms of what I do and what I'm going to bring to the right situation. Not every situation, right? And that's it. So I'm very comfortable once the discussion does come from when they want a number. People always tell you to negotiate and don't say a number. If you know the amount that you want and you're relatively firm with it in some general area, it's not like you're buying a used car. If someone's calling you because they want you, they probably have a budget that is not that flexible. They might be able to go and ask for more, and they're probably going to start lower than what they can ultimately pay, but it's not going to be like this big haggle for a car, right? They either have it or they don't, and there's a little wiggle room. And I find the wiggle room is like 20%, right? If someone's coming out and they're saying like, they can get you, 2,000, 2,500, yeah, they might be able to get you 3,000, right? So if I came out and I said, yeah, I would need $5,000 to come do that, but you have me all day, right? And by the way, I didn't even say inclusive right there. I would need $5,000 for that, right? Then the discussion is going to come, and this is when it does become a little bit of that. They're going to say, oh, is that inclusive? The second I hear that, right? The second someone says, is that inclusive? I know it's in the realm of plausibility, right? So what do you think I'm going to say? Like, is that inclusive? I'm not going to say yeah. I would say no, right? Because I'm in the realm of where that is. Now, truthfully, if it is on a day where I have nothing going on and it's 100 miles away, depending on what it is and what the audience is and who the arena is, $5,000 is a pretty good day at the office, right? But it's not unbelievable, right? It's not like unbelievable money and when you realize that someone is willing to pay 20 grand for this quite often, if it's a corporation, you'd be crazy to jump over the fence at 5 grand. But I'm just assuming that was like a high school show or a library or something like that. But if it's a corporation that's coming in or it's a major university, I'm starting at 20 because that's what I've worth and that's what I've quoted before, right? So you have to be in a and you need to do your research if you don't know. So if you know that the going price for somebody in my realm, right, at a college is in the 10 to 25 range, right? Are you worth that? That's the question. Don't just say how good you are. Do people know you? Are you a known commodity? Do you have receipts, right? Like, can someone look you up on Google and find 30 pages of you from like legitimate sites? If they can, you probably are worth some fraction of that, if not all of it, right? So for some of you, you've never done this before. Some of you might be way more on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of how often you've done this kind of stuff, but that's the way to be thinking about it. Who do you compare yourself to? Who's someone in your lane of whatever industry that you're in? You need to find out what they're making. That's why I'm saying it to you, right? You need to know what the kind of going rate is. And trust me, in rap, most rappers aren't playing at colleges. They're just not. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to go about it. It is a little bit of a shell game. It's very interesting. There's a lot of quirks and stuff, and it's not like I get that every day, right? But when I do get it, of course I'm happy. And remember, my goal is 20 to 30 times a year in a normal situation of COVID, right? It's very legitimate, rational, makes sense based on the credentials that I particularly have. You might have ones that are way better than me. You might have ones that are way worse than me, and you don't know it in either situation. You might be like, oh, yeah, I could be doing this, blah, blah, blah. Really? Okay, what do you have? What's the credibility you have to want to do it? And then the other end, you might be way over the mark. You might have like, 5 more vinyl than I got on my wall, and your searches might pull up all kinds of stuff, and you basically sitting at home, like, because you don't know how to market and promote yourself, right? Do you have an actual website, right, that you can dictate what it is that people are going to see? And by the way, website info can pull up and can come to the top if you're on your due diligence with your website. Mine's professorlyrical.com, by the way. And does it look the part? Does it look so polished that you're going to scare away people when you're asking 5 grand or 10 grand or $500? Are you going to scare certain people away? Or is it so polished that it looks like, oh, you're already all set. I can't possibly mess with you. I'm not saying to dumb it down, but I am saying to think about your general audience that you're trying to reach. And it probably should look something similar if you generally care. So the non-flinching when we're talking about stuff only comes with repetition. So it might be you doing what I'm doing right now, making a little video and see what it looks like. Would you give 5 grand to that person? Assuming that there's nothing there, assuming that it's like, just word of mouth. Someone heard that you're dope and there's like one link for you out there. And don't get it twisted. This is where people make the big mistake. And this is where they spend money. And to me, it's dumb, right? They think receipts means you got 20,000 people on Instagram or more. Nobody cares, bro. Everybody knows that those numbers can be faked, right? Everyone. What people know isn't faked. Well, at least for the most part, it's not faked. If there's 20 different like websites and you've heard of a lot of them out there and they got stories about you, chances are you're probably doing something correct, right? That can't be faked like numbers can on YouTube videos and all this kind of stuff. Like most of it's fake. right? Some people legitimately got it like that, and that's great, but it's probably going to match up with all the other stuff. So if you're seeing somebody got 20,000 followers on Instagram, right, and they have no website and they have like nothing else matches up, they got, let's say they're rappers, they got very little music in the ether. In other words, it's all got to match up. And even when it is, you should be suspect because most people are going to be suspect. Does something look out of whack, right? We've all been in those arenas. We've all had to think about that for ourselves. Like, hey, what would I be willing to do, right? Would I be willing to fake my Instagram account and go, have 5,000 fake followers? For me personally, no. But I've certainly thought about different things like that. I've thought about, you know what? Like, I only have whatever it was at the time. Like, I got 1,000 Twitter followers or whatever, right? And then I look at this dude over there and they got 1 million. And I've never even heard of this person. Like, you start thinking, go, man, that doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem equitable. I wonder what they're doing to make that work, right? But I would encourage you not to go down that path. And here's why. A, you can figure it out. And there's so many grifters out there, and you don't want to be one. You don't want to be known as doing that kind of stuff. I mean, there's close things to that are much more ethical, right? Like that are. Do I encourage you to pay for Facebook ads? Yeah, you should pay for Facebook ads. You want people to see your site and see what you're doing. So I don't see anything wrong with that. That's still organic, right? But when people are like, paying for 6,000 people to view your site overnight, and you get these email ads on Instagram that I get every other day. It's like, delete, delete, delete. Don't waste your money. Don't play yourself out like that. Instead, be doing the kind of things that lead to actual breadcrumb trails of you out there. And that may start with you doing blogs, or again, friend, family, whoever has a podcast or has a whatever, right? However you can start to get your name in the ether, it does build slowly but surely. And if you don't have that there, those prices aren't going up in whatever realm that you're doing. They're just not, right? Unless you are so otherworldly talented. Like when we hear you sing a rap, everyone just goes, oh my gosh, and you might be that person and be doing all this stuff, but be consistent with it and watch it slowly go up. People after a while, everyone wants to rush it, but people after a while, they will acknowledge and they'll go, yo, you know what? You're really dope. Like, hey, could you get in this show? And don't forget, that doesn't mean you're going to be like, yo, I got to be charging $5,000 or whatever. No, you might be charging $50, right? But like, yeah, and you have to be able to ask for something when somebody's asking you for something. It's just common sense, right? Last thing I'll give you, and we got to wrap it up. And this is like from business school. It's like from business 101. This is just from street smarts. This is just for whatever, right? If you're not willing to charge, I'm not saying that you have to charge. There's plenty of times I don't charge people for stuff. I'm just like, nah, you can take it. You good. I know you. Yeah, they're handing me ass fly, right? People throwing money at us for albums. I was like, nah, you got it. That's on you. I'm happy that you came. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want you to go back and take this of mine. And people are like, oh, what? But you can make those decisions. But what I was going to say is when you are willing to charge for something, it's almost more respectable. In other words, if someone says, yo, I want you to do the show and it's in, blah, blah, blah. And you're saying to myself, that's 25 miles from there. I got to be there an hour early, go over an hour. And they're like, yo, we got no budget. Be like, okay, I'm just doing my math opportunity cost, which just means how much you'd lose if you did that as opposed to doing nothing, right? Like, okay, I got gas, got to eat, got to get there, I got to sit around for 2 hours. What's your time worth? Do you actually have a number? Like, what would you pay yourself for an hour of your own time, which, by the way, is the most valuable commodity we have, right? Come up with that and then spit that out. That should be your minimum number, right? $200, whatever. If it isn't, then don't do it, right? And you're factoring in the opportunity cost and the plus on the other side of the quote unquote exposure, whatever it is going to be. Factor that in, do the plus and minus. It's real basic, right? Come up with that number. If you're like, yo, I'd pay $300 for the publicity to get into this club and do that. Okay. And then how much would you pay yourself for the hours, the time, the gas, the money, the wear and tear, leaving your family, whatever it is? Might be about a wash. You're like, oh man, like the break, yo, I'll do that show for free. And they'll be like, what? But you're not going to start by asking, and you're not going to come out and say, I'll do it for free. The respect would be to say, look, that's going to cost me like $200-300 my own time. I'd love to do your event. It has a lot of benefit for me, but I really can't do that for free, bro. And then, you have the decision, and then you see where the respect level is and you take it from there, right? Get comfortable, say it in front of a camera, talk about these things, be comfortable knowing what you're worth. Don't lie. Don't fake it. Be what you're worth, right? We're not trying to rob people, but at the same time, we're not trying to give stuff away for a craft that most of us have been practicing for our whole lives, right? So are you in that, whatever range, $500 to $1,000 range? Cool. Start at 1,000, right? If you believe that's the range you're in, start on the high side of it, right? Talk about it. See, have the discussion while you're there. If the person's saying they got $200, it's probably not going to happen. But you may be willing to do it on that low side of 500, and then if they're still saying 200, be like, bro, the lowest I could possibly do that's for 500. Like, is that even possible? And if they're like, no, then save you guys both the time. Maybe you're willing to take a discount on it with the expectation of something in the future. Last thought I'll leave you with: maybe you could have them buy merch from you ahead of time, and that you agree to let them either take a cut of that or manage that or guarantee you a certain merch sale. If it doesn't sell, they'll make up the difference. So if they're going to say 350, say, cool. I know you love me. I know you think I'm dope, right? I'm going to bring $150 worth of merch. And if I sell it, I'm happy. You might be. I'm just assuming, right? If not, would you make up the difference? A wonderful tip, a wonderful tactic. And I'm out of here. Thanks for checking out the ProQuo Show, baby. Also known tonight as the Pro Plo Show. All right. Peace, y'all. Don't forget, August 12th, check out the Angel. She'll be here with Slim Kid of the Far Side. That's going to be dope. Can't wait for that. She's got crazy stuff going on. And we'll see you next. Well, actually, here's the thing. Next week and the week after might be a little vacation for Pro. So we have to play that one by ear. All right. So thanks for sticking in. Peace.